Hey guys, I just finished a 45-minute IMSA race at Interlagos, and I thought it would be cool to review some of the racing incidents and determine who was at fault or whether it was just a racing incident and how it could have been prevented. Feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Now let's check out the first incident. So the first incident of the race occurs on lap 1 heading into the Senna S's. You can see that this blue car on the inside is side by side with the red car, and as they go into the second part of the S's, he gets turned, put into the wall, his tire is broken, and his race is over that quickly. So let's just review how that happened and possibly whose fault that was. So as we go to far chase here, we can just analyze this a bit more slowly. We can see that the blue car heading into the chicane or heading into the S's is like about half a car length ahead, but does not clear the red car at any point. And so I'd say his obligation, knowing that he's not clear, is to either think that the red car is going to back out or to leave him space if he knows that he's not going to back out. And at this point, it's questionable as to whether he left a space or not. If he did leave a space, it's just at such a bad angle that the red car really would have never made the corner. And so looking at the red cars on board, just from this, if we just go in slow motion through here, he can see that this car is on his inside. He can see that the car is ahead. And so I'd say from his perspective, he should back out at this point. And the fact that he doesn't, he causes that collision, he initiates it. So I'd put it more on this car. Even though the other car should have left space, he was ahead, so he could argue that it was his corner. So I'd say it's close to racing incident, but I'd say if I was to put blame, I'd put it more onto this red car. So yeah, I'd say definitely an incident that we've seen before many times at this corner where you kind of get that switchback, but nonetheless, I think that this could have easily been prevented if the red car just backed out. So the second incident of the race happened on lap 3 when an LMDH car was catching up on some LMP2 cars, a slower class car, and we can see that they're side by side going into the Senna S's, and now they're 2x2 going into turn 3. So this LMDH car is trying to figure out where to go to pass them, decides to go to the outside and make it 3 wide, and when he's on the curb, rejoins, and everything looks fine from that point of view. But now let's go back to the LMP2 car and see what happened to him. So as they're going 3 wide, out of turn 3 here, as the LMDH car rejoins, he taps the LMP2, who then smacks into the car on the left and bounces off into the wall, ending his race. So now let's just kind of review who's to blame for that. So as we go into far chase view, the one thing to note is, looking in this guy's rearview mirror, he would see this LMDH car coming to his outside. He would realize that they're 3 wide. And using spatial awareness and just being able to know the track well, you would know that the curbing is coming to an end and it's turning into grass. And so I feel like the appropriate thing is to make sure that you're leaving a space for this car to rejoin. And looking at it, this car did not seem to leave that space. And not only that, there was more room to move over to the left. There's like a whole car length of space. And so I feel like if this LMP2 car just shifted over slightly, that would have been the best way to avoid this incident. I don't think that this LMDH car passed out of track limits. I felt like he rejoined as safely as he could, and he was just trying to overtake in the safest way possible. So as unfortunate as it was, I probably would put more of the blame on this LMP2 car just for not leaving enough space for the LMDH to rejoin. So this third incident of the race probably is the weirdest of them all, so I'm just going to let you watch it in full speed first, and then I'll explain my thoughts. Okay, so that was a very confusing, multi-sectioned incident. So let's review this first part, since it really is kind of split into 3 different sections. This first part looks like this 10 car is trying to make a move onto the car ahead, this 11 car, into turn 5 here, turn 4, and it looks like he's either locks up, trying to outbrake the car ahead and taps him. If you watch the onboard and look at his steering inputs, you should see something similar. It's hard to tell if there's any lockup, but there is just a lot of change in the wheel, a lot of shaking in the wheel, which kind of seems to suggest the front wheel lockup. Anyways, tries to correct and unfortunately just taps the car on the inside. And the question is, was the car on the outside leaving enough space? And was this car even alongside to make a move? So as we're going into the braking zone, is he alongside? He really doesn't seem to be. He's like at the quarter panel at this point, and there might be a car length there, but the car really has no control at all of his brakes, and so overshoots the corner and collects that car. So I definitely put that full blame on the blue car, and it looks like both of them get sideways, but they quickly recover. So then it looks like the yellow car tries to rejoin, clips on the grass, gets sideways, and then collects the blue car. And that is just a really unfortunate incident after everything seemed to be fine. And at this point, the yellow car somehow manages to keep it out of the wall and it starts to get going. And it's hard to tell whether this blue car tries to. It was just such a weird rejoin. I mean, it looks like this car. I would argue that this car was about to try to continue, but you can see his tire is destroyed from hitting the wall. And so it's like, I don't know why he wouldn't just tow at this point, but instead what he does, he decides to get going and just rams into the the yellow car. And so you could argue that this ram is like sort of revenge for taking him out after he was about to get going again, but this mistake clearly seems to be unintentional. So wow, this was just a cluster a cluster mess of everything that happened here. I would say this first incident was on the blue car, but it seemed like it was initially unintentional, collected that yellow car, and then when the yellow car rejoined, sorry, let's go back. When the yellow car rejoined, he unfortunately collected the blue car, so I'd say they're almost even at this point. If anything, the yellow car is more to blame. But luckily, at this point, the yellow car can still continue, and the blue car wrecks him. So that seems like that's the most intentional part of this whole wreck. And so I mean, the blue car is out of this race, so I don't even know how to penalize him at this point. But yeah, that's a pretty complicated series of events where, and then I'm assuming after smashing into the yellow car, his race is over too. So yeah, I put those three incidents, probably they were even after the first two, and now after that third one where the blue car just tries to wreck the yellow car, um, that's that's like a race ban or something on the blue car. That just seems unnecessary. So let me know your thoughts, and now let's check the fourth incident. So the fourth incident of the race happens on lap 19, and as we're heading to turn 1, this M&M's Lamborghini overshoots the corner, just outbrakes himself, and drives into the grass. Looks like he's just trying to rejoin to the track safely, and eventually does. He's just letting the cars go by, goes to the inside, and looks like everything's back to normal. And unfortunately, he's not up to full speed yet. There's a car to his outside, and once again, there's contact, and now the M&M's Lamborghini is flipped upside down. So let's review what happened there. So we already saw that the Lamborghini wasn't up to full speed, but let's check the car that was trying to overtake him. So we can see here's this BMW. He has a lot more speed, tries to go to the outside, uses the curbing, and once again runs out of space, and so tries to rejoin as the grass is ending, makes contact, and taps the Lamborghini, who also collects the BMW. Luckily, kind of keeps it out of the wall, and seems to be able to continue. But once again, this is about spatial awareness, and the question is, was this Lamborghini not thinking that he should be able to let a car by? Did he think that he was leaving a car width? Did he not realize the curb was ending? It just seems that this is such a common occurrence, and it just, like, he should have realized he was not up to speed fully, and that there was cars coming behind him, and he wasn't seeming to change lanes. I mean, if you look at his place on track respective to the outside white line, I mean, at this point you can see he's about one car length away from the white line or so, and then, I mean, it's so minor, but just having to know there's a car to your outside who's going to have to rejoin, and you can see this BMW was even nice enough to use some of the grass to try to even join slower, since he realized that this Lamborghini wasn't giving him enough room. So I'd say this is not only on the Lamborghini, but I would say this is on the Lamborghini, and the BMW is trying to rejoin even nicer than he could have. So yeah, I would just say the problem is when there's curbing outside of the white line, I question whether other cars consider it out of bounds, and so they don't feel they have to leave the space. But in my opinion, you should leave the space for another car, or else your race can be over and you can be flipped upside down. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, but let's get on to the fifth incident. So this next incident actually involved me as I was trying to pass a GT3 car. So as we're catching up to him, we're going to see if we can pass him around the outside of this left-hand corner. And by the exit of the corner, we're side by side, and he just clips me in the left rear. And so the question is, should I have tried to go a bit wider in order to avoid him, or did he just understeer into me? So I feel this is actually one of the more clear-cut incidents, but we can kind of see that we just go in slow motion from a higher up perspective. By the time that we're at the exit of the corner, I basically used up all the track I could. I could use a bit more of this curbing, but you start getting a 1x if you get onto the AstroTurf here. So I feel like he just needed to have a bit more spatial awareness in terms of how to drive a corner when there's a car on your outside. It's obviously not the most common. You're so used to being able to use up all the track. But once this contact does happen, I feel like there's nothing I really could have done because I was already there at that point. So we can see that once he finally slides onto the grass, he rejoins the track, and it doesn't look like he's trying to retaliate or anything, but he does come across the track right when I was passing. So it wouldn't exactly have been the best thing if he wrecked me as he was rejoining the track, but luckily he didn't, and we were able to continue. So unfortunate for him, but I think that was just a situation of not exactly knowing how to drive the corner when there's a car being out there. So yeah, I think that's just a case of making sure to get on the gas a bit later to avoid the car sliding out all the way to the edge of the track, because if that happens and the car is there, you're just going to make contact. So yeah, that's how I prevent that in the future. So now let's get into the next incident. So for this last incident, where there wasn't actually any contact, I just have one question. Would you have reacted in time? So yeah, as we go back, we are heading on into turn 1 with only 5 laps to go in the race, and literally up until this point we think everything's fine. We see a little bit of smoke, but out of nowhere a Porsche comes onto the racing line perpendicular to us, and we have to get on the brakes, move out of the way at the last second, and I don't really even think there's any debate as to whose fault this is. I mean, luckily there wasn't contact, even though there so easily could have been, but let's see what even caused this in the first place. So as we go into chase view, let's just ride on board with the Porsche here. So as you could see, it looks like as this Porsche was entering turn 1, he clipped his right rear onto the grass, which caused him to spin, just loss of traction. You can see that he tries to save it, but isn't able to, and then he tries to get back on the power, and then he's basically just facing the wrong direction at this point. And so the question is, what do you do at this point now that you're facing traffic? And I think the best thing to do is just try to back up until you're like way over here on the grass, and then try to rejoin off the racing line into like turn 2. Obviously towing isn't the right approach, but if you're going to rejoin right here, I'd basically just look at your delta, wait till there's no cars coming, but instead he continues, drives onto the apex while there's a car coming right there, which is me, and then continues back onto the track. But it's just, I think the fact that he spun, I think the fact that he rejoined at just such a dangerous time, it was just a completely dangerous move. I mean, everyone spins and that type of thing can happen, but just the fact that you need to realize a safe way to rejoin, that's just the important thing to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.